Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for our screening of the shorts program Through the Cracks. I'm super excited to be joined by many members of film teams of the films that you just watched. I'm super excited to be joined by some directors and actors and producers here today. I'm going to ask them to go around and introduce themselves, and then we'll kind of hit them with a few questions. Can we start with Meredith?
Yes, hello, my name is Meredith, and I directed The Letter, and I'll pass it to Danny.
Hey, I'm Danny. I was in and wrote Dreamer, and I'll pass it on to Delilah.
Hi, I'm Delilah, and I'm the producer of Dreamer.
Jerry, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jerry Carlsson. I'm the screenwriter and director of the short film Nattåget, The Night Train in English.
And Marko.
Hello, I'm Marko from Croatia. I'm director and screenwriter of animation documentary All Those Sensations in My Belly. On Croatian is Sve te senzacije u mom trbuhu. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for taking the time to be here with us today. I'm excited to talk to you a little bit more about your films and your process, and especially about how they all fit together. So that's going to be the first question I ask. You can popcorn around in any order that you feel, but as you may know, you're in the shorts program Through the Cracks, which is sort of reserved for these stories that, in my mind at least, hopefully in yours, fill up some liminal space and talk about some things that are, in between classification and theme. And so if you all want to go around and tell me a little bit about what speaks to your film around that concept, I'd love to hear why you think you got placed in the Through the Cracks program. Anyone can just jump in.
I can go first. So I work in kind of a interesting, strange way where I make films kind of based on diagrams. I think a lot about okay, what if I have this concept and then I want to visually explain that, but not necessarily use live action. And so it's kind of this, process of writing, but also drawing things and not necessarily kind of filming in the traditional production order. And yes, my film is a lot of just kind of diagrams on a screen to talk about letters and what they mean. So that's how it fits in.
That makes sense. Dreamer team, what resounds sort of with your film in that way?
Yeah, I can start. I mean, our biggest goal was has always been to empower underrepresented voices. And I think we've always been, I grew up on YouTube and vloggers, and so I was just curious about how we could use that medium and how social media, I think social media is demonized a lot, and maybe for good reason sometimes, but I also think that the platforms like YouTube have allowed people to connect with each other in different communities to be able to access each other. And what does that mean for someone who maybe lives in a small town in the US, and how could they find community through YouTube? So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's lovely. It fills up the liminal space almost. It's a very connective film, I feel.
Yeah, for sure.
Delilah, do you want to add anything about your film in this program?
Yeah, so I mean, it was really, I know as the director, Stephanie and Danny, we talked a lot about how were we going to get to connect an audience with this idea of using YouTube form to shoot this short. And it has to be oh yeah, this is really cool, because everyone is on social media and it is a great way to connect in a different way and with a different audience. Because as Danny, we talked about often was no, everyone's on YouTube. You have to believe me. I was okay, we're gonna shoot it like this. And it came out and it's a way that everyone's really interested in watching, because a lot of younger generations of kids really connect with it in that way because they are always constantly on YouTube, so yeah. It was really important for us to shoot it in that way because Danny was yes, we need to do this.
I'm not an actual vlogger, by the way.
I know you're not, but we talked about
it. But she's right, I do love it.
You play the part quite well. Yeah, each of these films, has definitely a technical style that to me really stands out as something that's very, very singular and very unique. So talk to me about The Night Train. How do you feel like it fits into this sort of idea about liminal space?
About
liminal space, the spaces in between, gray area, travel even.
Exactly. No, but I think I can't, of course, answer how you program, but I'm curious to know your idea of that. But I mean, for me, I mean, this film is based on a memory of mine. So for me, I really wanted to get into that authentic experience of feeling everything that I felt again and try to recreate that in a film. So I mean, this film is based on a memory from when I was 18, and I was traveling. I grew up in a small town in the north of Sweden by the Arctic Circle, and I applied to film school in Stockholm, and they wanted me to come for an interview. So I jumped on the night train, and it takes about 14 hours down to Stockholm. And then I went to my 20-minute interview, and then headed back straight to the central station again to catch the night train home. And when I sat down, I got eye contact with this guy. And for me, it was the first time I met the gaze of someone who felt the same attraction towards me that I felt towards him. And it was kind of a torturous 14-hour train ride. And so this film is kind of a rendition of that memory, to revisit it and see what happened, what could have happened, and recreate the experience for other people.
Absolutely. And it is lovely. The night train is liminal of its own right. It's just, it's exactly in that space, and it comes across really beautifully. And Marko, what would you say about all those sensations in my belly? You're muted for now, but I'm sure you'll rectify that.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, can you please explain this expression, because I'm getting a problem, probably because of the English.
Totally.
What it means, like through the cracks. Because when I'm searching on internet, I don't know if it relates to my film by definition on internet.
I think that's totally okay too. That's a great answer, is that it doesn't relate to that idea at all. I just mean it's sort of something that it's in between. It's neither one thing nor the other. It defies categorization in a certain way. Does any of that kind of connect to you? And if it doesn't, you can say why too.
Okay, I see. Yeah, it's something similar is on internet. Yeah, so it's like an expression. Okay. Definitely, I think maybe in case of my film, it could be also the medium, because I used the animation documentary. So this is like probably something in between, because it's not completely animated film, and also it's not completely like a documentary. So it's something in between. So it's actually kind of balanced version of this kind of hybrid form, between like documentary and animation.
Totally.
And in the sense of story, I don't know if since the film it talks about real life of Matija, who is transgender girl from Croatia, maybe it also fits into this subject. Maybe that's why.
Yeah.
So maybe I should ask you, because you put that into the program.
I know, right? I turned on you guys as like a total pop quiz, but I'm always interested to hear, what.
Yeah. So that would be my answer, I think.
No, I think that's great. I think you all nailed it in terms of what I saw in your films too. But it's cool to hear from each team, and I think what also defines this program to me are these really distinct visual styles. So I'm going to hit each of you with a few specific questions about how you put your films together, because they are each so unique, and they really pop off the screen, like I said, technically and narratively as well. So Meredith first. Yes, Delilah.
I just wanted to add on before we move on. It's just also, it was really important for us, the stories that we do want to tell that kind of makes it a little bit different is the first generation children of immigrant stories. Right? So, and on this journey of trying to get to the person that you want to be, but also stuck in this idea that, if you do want to become that, you can affect your whole family and lose their lives, right? So that's something that was also really important for us to share for those of us who grew up in that way, because we don't oftentimes see that angle told in most stories. So something Daniel and I talked about a lot when we did this. So.
Totally. Thank you. No, that's warrant saying for sure. And just a note to all of you also, the reason we're pre-recording, we can cut some of this up. So there's no sweat about jumping in or doing anything like that. But yeah, Meredith, can you tell me a little bit about what I love about your film is how academic it comes across to me, and it's sort of a very interesting exploration of semiotic theory and has a connection to Edgar Allan Poe that really interested me. So can you tell the audience a little bit more about sort of the impetus for the project and what it meant to deconstruct these concepts for you?
Yes, definitely. So I started at a point of thinking about letter writing. And I think it was close to the end of 2020, I realized I had written a handful of letters and I had never sent them.
Mm.
And then I was considering what that means. Like, what does it mean when a letter is kind of this reciprocal act, but then I like cut it off and didn't send them? And why am I not sending them? And I had done some reading about language and also, like letters as epistolary letters. So like the letters we do send, but also letters as like A, B, C, even a few numbers, and so I started to piece together this film that is kind of these three letters that I didn't send meshed together. So the person I'm addressing is multiple people. It's these three kind of women in my life. And I drew on Edgar Allan Poe's The Purloined Letter, and a story about a letter that like is stolen and lost, but different theorists have questioned what it means for like a letter to arrive at its destination, if a letter ever does, but also the ways that language can kind of twist and turn too throughout that. And so I was thinking, okay, what does it mean to like break things down into kind of this like simplest form? And where I started, making diagrams in the first place was kind of, it came to me from thinking about, oh, what if I was trying to talk to my parents who, are kind of in a slightly more conservative part of the US and come from slightly more conservative backgrounds, and just talk to them about queerness and kind of break that down into its simplest form. So that's the letter.
Yeah, it was so resonant, and it was amazing to see how you can manifest all that visually. It came across, and we did, amongst the programming team, have some conversation about who in the world these letters could be for. It was I think that's a part of its universality too, is I think we can all sort of relate to something unanswered, something unsaid. Really beautiful. For the Dreamer team, I'd love to hear a little bit about your working relationships here. I know, we've got a producer, and, Danny, as you acted and wrote this film. What was it like? And what was it like working with Steffo and kind of, getting things off the page and into real life as a lead actor? I imagine that was an interesting process, transformation, manifestation. How did that all go?
I mean, it was great. I think we can all attest to how collaborative a lot of this process is, and directing goes like over my head. I have no idea. So it was also fascinating to just work with people who are so talented in what they do, and to learn from them. And everyone in our team was a person of color, and I think that was very important for us. And yeah, it was super collaborative. I was never precious about anything. I think that was important to me.
Yeah, I think it was great that Danny, we worked on the script together, because I think we talk about Fran is kind of Danny, it's kind of his life in a way. We talked about before, Danny, how you connect to Fran in a way, and maybe it's part of you that you want to be, but because of who we are and where we come from, you're not really allowed to be the person you really want to be. So, and like I said earlier, like oftentimes, when your parents are in a country, maybe illegally or something like that, you can't. You may suffer a lot in silence, because there's a level of already your identity, and then there's a level of people being safe and not being deported. So it's like you then have to hold on to the grief and maybe something that you're suffering with, because you can't affect your family if people get unhappy or upset and people get in trouble. So there's a lot of fear there. So Danny really allowed me and Steph to really like help him make his story in a way, personally in a way. He let us kind of give him ideas that we were able to change it, that worked for him, but it still became the story that he wanted it to become. And that's really awesome. It usually doesn't happen that way, but everyone's really sensitive about their stories, and we want to be sensitive about it as well. And the other part of it is making sure that we hire everyone that look like us or who are maybe also queer, and making sure that we identify everybody as they choose to be, you know, because the world is evolving and changing. That's really important for everyone.
Absolutely. And I think that really comes across that the film itself does feel, so authentic and so human. And I think, the work that you all did personally really shine through in that way, for sure. Talking about the night train, I'd love to talk a little bit about what I kind of identified as some really zoomed in moments, these really amazing moments of texture and focus on little details. I'm thinking about the drip off of the orange that has stuck with me since the first time I saw your film. Tell me about how you envisioned those things and how you brought them to life. They seem to really signify your film to me.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to recreate the experience, so I went back into this, trying to find these sensual or tactile moments that kind of becomes authenticity. So I wanted to build, I wanted to have a very subjective feeling of the main character, of his, like recreating his memory of this trip with the train and the rhythms of the train through the entire film, how they change and are shaped by his emotional state. And I mean, the film is mainly based on the memory of my night train, but there's also two other memories that I kind of woven into there, because I was trying to find a memory of that is non-sexual, but for me felt very sexual. So I have this memory of me being on the subway in Berlin, a very dirty subway, and I'm hit by this intense smell of orange. And I look over and I see that everyone in the train cart is staring at this homeless woman eating this orange in the most, it was very erotic. And I'm very gay, but still it was very erotic. And she kind of just peeled the entire orange and just bit into it, and it just dripped all over her. And it filled the entire train cart with this smell of orange. So everyone was like tantalized and just looked at her enjoying this orange. And the third memory is, I might leave the third memory out, but it's it's like another sensual memory. So I tried to just build them on this create this sensualism, subjective sensualism of the main character's memory and experience. Try to create something that is not only plot driven, but is driven by senses. And
yes, it comes across as very tactile. The orange took my breath away. That's for sure. And Marko, can you tell me a little bit about how you developed this animation style? It was, again, so specific and felt like such a signature. I'd never seen anything quite like it. What was your vision going into it, and how did it evolve as you brought it to life?
At the beginning, I had idea to do the film about transgender girl from my city, Annie. I was actually trying to find a perfect protagonist for my film, somebody who would like to talk about. It needs to be very, very honest and how to say, like playful, and also talk a lot, and to be open enough and share this kind of intimate experience of the life, And then I applied to Croatian Audiovisual Center. I got the money for research and these interviews, and then I started doing like this first phase of the film, which is interviewing people. And then after a while, I found Matija. And about the visual style, this is my fourth film, and actually my previous film are completely done by me. It means that I draw everything, I design everything, and since I'm also comic artist, it was like kind of very specific comic style. And for the purpose of this film, I decided to do something different because I think it should be more poetic and different. So actually, and also I needed some more, let's say, feminine vibe integrated in this film, especially because it's about transgender girls. So that's why I found Hannah Tintor, a Croatian illustrator. She's like really amazing. and then she actually did the design and animation, and so all the stretching and moving in film. Actually, this is her first animation film.
Oh.
So she almost never animated before, and you can see that because she's doing like very, let's say, kind of clumsy way of animation, but it looks beautiful. Characters are changing all the time. Everything is like, it has like specific and different emotion. And I'm kind of limited as an animator who like studying animation, and it will be completely different in my case. So that's why I think it gets this specific kind of look and style. Yeah.
Yeah, no, yes, I love, you can feel the stitches. It feels, yes, beautifully handmade.
Yeah.
Last question I'll ask, I'll kind of just put it out to anyone who feels like jumping in and answering. It seems to me that, each of these projects is so personal. We have so much memory here, and talking about experience and putting it up on screen in front of people. Does anyone want to speak to what the creative process was like, being so vulnerable, and what it means to you to present the film to the public, having so much of yourselves in it?
I mean, I can mention that I've been looking forward so much to see it in a filled cinema, and I haven't. we had the premiere where we had a half full cinema at the premiere of the first festival, but since then I haven't been able to watch it, and I would love to watch it with a packed cinema and see and feel their emotions in the space, but I haven't been able to do that. But hopefully soon I'll be able to do that. Yeah.
I'm sure you're reaching into homes. You're definitely giving people the experience of the night train in their living room. So rest assured, and someday soon. Anyone else?
I think for us, it's like our feedback was a lot of people felt touched. I think again, we speak from the cultures that we come from. Again, when we can have these conversations, and I think people were telling us how emotional it was for them, and we really appreciate that, because we were like we talk about, anything with identity and sexuality is a difficult conversation normally, and if you're not prepared to let people know, and you come from a culture that really doesn't believe in it or understand it. People are really happy that we were able to tell it in this way, in this bold, in your face way. Like Danny said, Fran is a little over the top, he lives in a small town, and people who live in small towns sometimes have to hide themselves. So I think people love that. And I really love that Danny let us again help him tell this personal part of his life, which is really great. I don't know if Danny wants to say anything.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say that it's exciting, but also a little scary. I think some of my favorite stuff to work on and to see other creators do is stuff that feels personal. And while I'm not exactly the character Fran that I wrote, there are a lot of intersectionalities. We're both queer. I grew up in Texas, which leans more conservative. And so there are similarities there, but I was also pushed to kind of be like, oh, what is I'm not I'm a gay man, but I'm not as feminine as Fran is. So how do I in my personal life kind of hide behind certain things, or what spaces do I even feel safer in than maybe someone like my character Fran would feel safer in? So it for sure pushed me to kind of realize that everyone's queer journey looks very different, and everybody's safety in places is also very different.
Yeah, and we made sure that when we shot it, to make sure that we can show as much of that as possible, because we understand everyone's journey is not the same, and to be very sensitive to that as well.
Yeah. I don't know if you all know, but the name Damn These Heels comes from the idea that you build empathy from walking in other people's shoes. So I'll just end by saying thank you all for sharing your films with us, because I think through making them, obviously, and also through presenting them, I think that's exactly what we're doing. So thank you so much for being here today, and also for letting us present your wonderful films. We're so excited to have you as part of our festival.
Thank you.
We can wait.
Thank you.
Bye.